Valley Blitz. This is a Coach's Corner edition, and we're real excited today, right, Coach Josh?
Yeah, my favorite coach.
We got a real special guest coming in here, Coach Ramon Ruiz, head coach of La Quinta Blackhawk football. Thanks for coming in,
Thanks,
Coach.
Coach.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's
Yeah.
it's a real pleasure to be here. I enjoy watching you guys, and the fact that you're promoting high school athletics, high school
Yeah.
football is huge, and that's important.
So tell us, Coach, how did you get involved in coaching? Take us back.
So,
Take us way back to the beginning here.
way
How did
back
you
to
even
the
get involved
beginning.
with football? I think we want to hear that love story. Where's that love story
I've
start?
basically been on a football field since fifth grade. You know,
All right.
every August since fifth grade, and except for one season that I took off while I was getting my degree. But I grew up in Sacramento.
Mhm.
You know, I had the opportunity to attend some Catholic schools, and there were football programs there, and we did some good things. And you know, I came and played at College of the Desert. When I got done, I stuck around, and right away I started coaching at Coachella Valley High School. So I
Awesome.
started there in '95.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
95 on the freshman staff. Coach Ron Alford,
Yeah.
he was around for a long time. He hired me. He had become the head coach, and I did that for 2 years. And I basically was at CV to from '95 all the way to 2010. Was a head coach there, and my last 4 years there. Then I did 2 years at Desert Mirage High School. And then I went in 2013 to La Quinta High School, where I was the head freshman coach for 2 years. Coach Armstrong
I
hired me
remember
there.
when you were doing the freshman
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You were on the varsity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was the freshman coach. My son decided to go to school there, and Coach Armstrong was gracious enough to give me a job. You know, he was on the other side of the sideline when I was at CV,
Yeah.
but
How was that though?
you
Battling
know what?
him.
We always gave him a game. He always ended up. They had more dogs than us, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that helps.
But I think we competed well. We made the playoffs that last year, which was a big thing at CV.
Yeah.
You know, we were always battling. You know, at that time we didn't have the same dudes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got more dudes now, and but we did some good things.
He brought you on, so
And he
that's
brought me,
something.
yeah, he brought me on, and did 2 years and helped on
Yeah.
the varsity here and there upstairs. And you know, I became the athletic director at La
Yeah.
Quinta.
Yeah.
I did that for a stint, and you know, I've been the head coach now. This was my fourth season,
Of
so I
course.
was doing the math with my wife the other night, and we were talking about like how long have I been doing this? And she said we came up. It was it's going to be my 30th year coaching high school
Wow.
football. I took 1 year off because I was working on my degree,
Yeah.
and I had to drive to San Bernardino, so I didn't get a chance. I didn't get a chance to coach that year. But it doesn't seem like that
I was
long.
just gonna ask you, does it feel like 30?
No,
Yeah.
no. But it's been a blast. It's
Well,
been a
you're a
blast.
lifer, man. 30 years. I mean,
It's gonna be my
you're not
30th
that old
year.
of a guy, man, to be
Yeah.
30 years coaching,
Yeah, I
man.
started young.
That's that's crazy. 30 years. But so what about football? Like why you could have coached probably anything. You're a teacher, you have an education background. What drew you to football, the game of football? Why'd you choose that profession to kind of go into and coach?
I like how you framed that question because ultimately it's teaching. You know, that's what we're doing. We're teachers, and you know, I was lucky enough to had some great coaches. You know, I always say, aside from my father, my grandfather, the most
Mm-hmm.
influential men in my life were my coaches. Aside
100%.
from them, and you know, there's some good dudes that came along the way that I said, you know, I'm gonna pay it back. You know, and
Yeah.
plus, when you're a competitor and you're competitive, and the closest thing to being on the field and actually playing is coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's a love for the game, a love for the process, a love for the opportunity to bring a bunch of group of guys together and all for one cause. And it's just it's so much fun. I couldn't see myself doing anything else.
Speaking to the mid 2010s when you took over at La Quinta, you know, I don't want to bring you back to that time, but La Quinta was a traditional powerhouse at that time that may have kind of lost its way there a couple years before you took over. And I think you deserve a lot of credit in kind of turning that thing around and getting back to La Quinta roots. What were some of the things that you kind of attribute that turnaround to? I mean, because it was pretty. There was a couple years where La Quinta didn't look like La Quinta, and I think you were the guy that came in and kind of changed that.
My focus has always been, you know, the weight room. That right there to me, that's where you win
Yeah.
football games. You know, I think you're giving me too much credit, you know, when because it's really the kids buying into the fact that we win football games starting in January. And it's not through X's and O's, it's
Mm-hmm.
through the weight room, getting stronger, getting bigger, getting faster. If we hit the weight room, we got a chance. We're going to compete, and that's what we preach to our kids. If you bring a good attitude, and you give effort, and you do A, B, C, and D, things will take care of
Mhm.
themselves. Sometimes we fall short,
But it's
but
close.
that's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's life. But we set that goal. Right now, we talked about that the other day. We're already in the weight room. I'm blessed to be at a place where they understand the importance of
Mhm.
those things, and they give us the opportunity to have our kids in the weight room, and that's what we're taking care of. We're not worried about X's and O's. That'll take care of themselves.
Yeah.
If we get bigger, faster, stronger, the X's and O's will take care of themselves.
It really does start in the weight room.
Absolutely. And I think that's an old Armstrong tradition too, right? Wasn't that one thing that he was kind of harped on?
He did do that, which falls in line with what I did because
Mhm.
when I was a head coach at CV High School, that was the number one issue we started. I mean, I've been at the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah.
We were 0-10 that first year as a head coach,
Yeah.
and I wanted to crawl underneath the rock and just not come out ever again. But that's where we just said, hey,
Well,
we got to take care, and we got in the weight room and we got bigger, we got faster, we got stronger, and we were able to compete. Were we always able to beat the schools like Palm Desert and La Quinta at that point in time? No, but we gave them a good run, and we showed that we belonged on that field with them, even though we fell
yeah.
short at times. But it starts there.
Yeah. Was there anything you did differently that when you come into a program that's kind of struggling, was there anything you kind of emphasized or
So again, going back to the weight room, and shout out to Coach Gleason.
Gleason?
Brian Gleason does a tremendous
He
job. I
does.
truly believe we got the best strength and conditioning
Mhm.
coach in the
Yeah.
valley, and I've heard from other guys when our kids go and work out with other organizations around the valley.
Mhm.
They always talk about how our kids are prepared. So, as far as organization wise, we when I showed up, I believed it was important for us to be physical, right,
Mhm.
which falls in line with the weight room, and protect the football,
Mhm.
okay, and grind things out at times,
Yeah.
and be able to keep the ball away from the other team.
Mhm.
I always felt that was important. So
Grit.
so so at first we really focused on running the football.
Mhm.
I think we've come a long way where we're still working towards getting better at the throwing game, and we
Mhm.
become more efficient. I mean, we threw for 1,400 yards this last year.
That's awesome.
Everybody always thinks of us. Oh, look, there's
Yeah. Well,
we're
yeah.
going to do what it takes to be successful on the
Yeah.
football field.
Yeah.
I don't like to say we're 50-50. That we're going to do what it takes to
If you
to put
stack the
us in a
box, yeah,
in a
we're gonna put
position
it up.
to yes, and we've gotten better at that.
Mhm.
The other piece of the puzzle that we focused on was in the classroom.
Yeah.
Emphasizing the fact that these kids are student athletes. They're students first, athletes second, and I think we've come a long way. Our GPAs have rocketed, have skyrocketed, and that to me that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, the educational piece is something that people don't really think about. But coming from an old Indio coach, I'll tell you that's a very important thing because
Yeah.
you get a good group of freshmen. They come in, there you have a good team, good season, and then half that team's not eligible coming back that
Mhm.
sophomore year. So that's a big piece that you got to kind of keep an eye on as a head coach and running the program,
It's an
Yeah.
right?
important piece of the puzzle. Again,
Yeah.
they're student athletes, and some guys you got to hold hands.
Yeah,
You got to hold hands, and you got to be more on them about that. Other guys, it comes natural, and all we're doing is we're emphasizing and we're supporting the things that I'm sure their parents are telling them at home.
Yeah.
right.
Do your homework, do the things you got to do to be a good individual, good person. So that's a little bit from my end as far as philosophy.
Right. You said you're a 30-year veteran of this game, man. So there had to be some people along the way in those years that kind of influenced you and kind of mentored you. I know we all have guys that kind of took us under the wing. Is there anybody that kind of stands out you'd like to speak to kind of that influenced your philosophy going forward?
Yeah, so several guys. I was lucky enough that I started back at CV where Ron Alford gave me my first chance, my first shot, and uh, I really learned a lot from him.
Mhm.
The other individual that really truly taught me how to implement an offense. How I was a young coach and I just sat there and absorbed, and it's a name that maybe some of you are familiar with, but Walt Kriner, rest in peace. Walt
Mm.
Kriner was a longtime coach. At Coachella Valley High School. He ended up leaving. He coached in the college ranks. He was the head coach at Snow College.
Mm.
Was a
Wow.
national junior college champion. They won back. We're going way back,
Yeah, no.
and
That's
then
what
he
the
came
show's
back. He
for.
was at Arizona Western, and then he came back to CV. I was a young assistant coach at CV in the late '90s
Yeah.
when Walt Kriner came back, and man, just seeing him the way he did things out. That's where I learned how to run an offense, how to implement it, how to you know A B C D, how
Mhm.
to do things in practice. And I didn't say much.
Yeah.
I
He
didn't
was
say much. I just sat and absorbed, and I learned a lot from him. Look him up.
yeah, check him
He
out.
is a legend, and he's always
Local.
he had several brothers that coached in college ranks. One of his brothers coached at the World League of American Football, Boise State head coach, athletic director. I mean, it's a big
Yeah.
family in the Coachella area. I mean, a lot of them passed away.
And he had a system down that just
Yeah,
made
and it was
sense and it was
it just
easy.
and it wasn't so much about the system as about how to implement the
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where I learned a lot. And I learned a lot under I coached under a lot of head coaches. And I learned a little bit from here,
Mhm.
from there, and
Yeah.
there, and you just kind of
Yeah.
mesh
Put
your
it in your
your
pocket, take it
yeah
with
yeah,
you. Yeah.
and you kind of do things your way. And is it right all the time? No, you're always learning
But
and
you get to find
fixing.
out. You get to finally
Yeah,
find out
yeah,
if your
yeah.
way's gonna work or not,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So it's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
The minute I show up and say I got it down, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fire
Right,
me.
right.
Yeah. 100%, man. It's a big job. It's all we talk about it all the time,
Yeah.
man. And we always like, would you do a head coaching job? Would you do a head coach? It's a big job. I mean, you
It's a
got parents,
full-time
you got
full-time gig on top of your full-time
students.
gig, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's a
It's fun.
it's a
It is.
labor of love though, right? I mean,
We're
you're
not
not
doing it for the money. We're
yeah.
No.
not doing it
No.
for the money. Matter of fact, we're a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what my wife used to tell me when I
For
coached
lack of a
too.
better term,
Getting that
What
paycheck.
are we
Yeah.
doing?
I
Yeah.
mean, we're working for $5 an hour.
It's
If
hot.
if that.
But
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
it goes back to
It's
that's not why we're doing it in
yeah.
the end,
No.
and that's what people sometimes don't understand that, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Looking to upgrade your home? Tile Designs by Fina is your one-stop destination for beautiful flooring, hard surfaces, and countertops. From timeless design, modern styles, they've got the perfect look for every room. Stop by today and transform your space with Tile Designs by Fina. Let's design together.
So there's a lot of been changes in the last 30 years, coach, like since you've started. There's this new, kind of like push for player freedom and players transferring in and out things that players can do now. In my day we had no concept of like changing schools mid-year, changing schools at the end of the year, transferring out and going to a different school in the middle of your academic season. How is that has that been an adjustment for you as a head coach to try and run a program, something that you have to kind of keep an eye on, or what's your kind of view on this new push for all this player freedom?
Well, I don't get very many transfers, so I mean, I'm not getting, maybe other guys are, but as far as we're going to coach up whoever shows up at our front door.
Yeah.
Whoever the good Lord puts at our front door, we're going to coach them hard. We're going to love them hard. And we're going to give them all the tools necessary to be successful on the field, in the classroom. But I can't control those things. And I hear a lot of coaches sometimes say, what, kids are different now. There is a difference, but when it's all said and done, in my opinion, kids still want to be a part of something.
Mhm.
They still want to be a part of something. They want structure. They really do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They crave it. Even and it's up to us, to as coaches, we got to create that structure within our program. And kids are going to mess up.
Mhm.
And I don't like to write kids off. Because I feel like everybody deserves a chance. So I'm very big on working with kids because that's our job as adults
Yeah.
to get those kids back on the right track. But I'm not faced with that challenge of kids transferring much. And if they do decide to transfer, hey man, good luck to you. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be angry at anyone if they feel like this is not their place, and I'd rather not have them, to be honest with you. But I don't see it as something really that I've dealt with too much, lately.
Next man up
Almost.
mentality.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
I can't dwell on guys that don't want to be a part of this, and in
Yeah.
the end, if they don't want to be a part of this, then that's fine. I'm
Yeah.
okay with it.
I
I'm not
think
gonna be mad at you.
that kind of speaks to the stability of your program though, right? I mean, you got the reason you don't have like a transfer problem and people coming in and out of the programs because you guys are a stable,
Got that
winning
structure
Yeah,
he's
you got
talking
it,
about.
and that speaks to
Well,
the leadership of the
sometimes
program.
you hear, oh yeah, someone's gonna try. I don't say anything or whatever. If they do, I
Yeah.
tell my coaches if they go, they go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in the end, but if they stay, those that stay, they're gonna be, they're gonna be successful. Ultimately our goals are always the same. We're always looking to win a league championship, to go to CIF, make a run and be CIF champs.
Yeah.
Have a winning record. We have all those goals.
Yeah.
But we're more focused on the process. What is it we're going to do to get to that level? Because I'm sure everybody has the same goals.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm not the only coach saying those things.
Yeah.
So it's about what are we going to do that's going to allow us to put us in a position to be successful and to reach our goals.
Right. And speaking of, goals, you guys are a CIF championship caliber program. I mean, Armstrong kind of set that bar pretty high. The changes in the CIF that you've seen, and we've all kind of seen it covering the playoffs of how, we used to just play, teams in the Eastern CIF, we'd go up to the high
The
desert.
Eastern
and-
Division.
yeah, we'd go
Yeah.
play the Barstows and the Victor Valleys. And now, I mean, the algorithm is basically we're all beholden to that algorithm of hey, where are we gonna be slotted in there? Is that affecting the way that you're scheduling? Is that affecting like the way you kind of look at the preseason? I mean, that has to kind of
It's always changing.
It's always changing, but there seems to be like a new philosophy coming out of the scheduling thing now because people want to try and slot their position. So is that affected the way you're looking at things?
So as far we always have a tough time finding people to schedule. That's always especially now with the heat
Mhm.
Yeah.
advisory index and all that stuff.
Yeah.
People don't want to come play in the desert. So what we're starting to see, and I think you're going to see more of this, is more of the Coachella Valley teams playing teams in the Imperial Valley
Yeah.
because they're having
They're
a
hot
tough
too.
time
Same
getting San
time.
Diego
Yeah,
schools.
same thing.
So you're going to see more of that. So it's really hard if I were to want to try to situate myself in the position. In the end, it's a computer doing all this. I ain't smart enough
Yeah.
to
Oh,
figure
there's a
it
lot-
out.
yeah, 'cause-
So you know what? We're going to schedule who we can get.
Because the team
And-
could be
and-
really good the year before, and then the
yeah.
next year you're
That's
playing
true.
them there.
This
Yeah,
is true. It's
I-
high school football. You
One thing
never
I
know.
don't like, and I'll be honest with you, is I don't like to see the 1-9 teams, 2-8, 3. That to me is weird.
Yeah,
I honestly
get in and make a run, and because they're playing in the lowest
Yeah,
division
yeah, that's
round.
a
That
little-
doesn't make any sense to me either.
I don't agree with that completely, but it's out of my control. I mean, it
Yeah.
is what it is. I'm sure they're trying to work on something
Yeah.
to fix that, but in the end, I mean, we're going to do what we can to make it to the playoffs. We've made the playoffs the last 4 years.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of a drought, but I can't control those things. But we're just going to go out and give 100%, and
Yeah.
the cards will fall where they may. And I'm kind of a little different than most schools because I don't like to play a 0 week.
Yeah.
And I'm again, I go back to that idea. We're going to let the cards fall where they may. Yeah. Would it have been good to have a week off this
Yeah,
year?
This year.
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I
hard to
don't have.
say,
We
yeah.
don't know. I just like to let's go 1 through 10. Sometimes I hear pros and cons about that week off. Where,
Yeah, we talked about it a little
yeah,
bit.
they take a week off. Maybe I'm wrong on my philosophy, but it's just to me, I'd rather have an extra week off. It's hot as heck to be out there
Yeah,
in
yeah.
July, the end of July.
Mhm.
Let's wait till August.
Keep the
And-
momentum going once it's
Yeah,
going. and-
yeah. So I mean, again, very few schools. Everybody's doing a 0
Yeah,
week.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's real hard for us to find a scrimmage. I may have to change that. We'll see. But at this point, that's where we're
We
at.
used to scrimmage Yucca, but now they're playing. Yeah.
0 week
so,
because they were having a tough time finding
Yeah.
I'm
teams.
as an old DVL guy though, I'm liking the old Imperial Valley's rivalries
that's who we played,
getting
Brawley,
cracking again, man. Because when
Central.
I'm old enough to remember when they were in the DVL. Like
Yeah,
I,
wow.
I
Me
was
too. I
playing-
remember. I was
we're-
coaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
were playing Palo Verde. We were playing Calexico. Brawley was always tough. Central was tough.
Tough
and
kids
still
down
tough.
there. Tough kids.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited that those rivalries are starting to pop back up.
There's
man.
some good physical football.
Yeah.
there, and I think it gets you ready for the playoffs.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are physical, and we played Central this last season.
They were good, huh?
They were tough, and
It was a close game. Yeah.
You see a level of physicality that I don't see over here.
Going over the hill,
Yeah.
even you don't see it over there.
Nah,
huh?
I mean,
really?
they were.
Yeah.
And if you had a chance to see
Yeah,
the game,
yeah.
there's some physical teams, and this is not Central, but again, we have the same type of climate. I think you're gonna start seeing more of that.
Desert kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Bring that back, man.
Yeah.
Because as an old DVL guy, man, I love that, man. Those
I do
rivalries.
too.
That was always a tough game. Go down to the border and play Calexico on a Friday night. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it was
Those
a tough,
crowds are
tough
rowdy.
place to play, man. They're throwing stuff at you.
Mhm.
It was a good time. So
Yeah.
bring it back, man. Bring it back. So
Tired of payroll headaches? iPay Solutions is your local payroll and HR partner right here in the Coachella Valley. From direct deposits to compliance, we handle the details so you can focus on growing your business. iPay Solutions, local, reliable, and built for your success.
Got dirty carpets, tile, or furniture? Trust the Carpet and Tile Care Company, your family-run experts. We bring sparkle back to your home with top-notch cleaning services, reliable, affordable, and eco-friendly. Call us today. We can be reached at carpetcarrot.co. Phone number 760-773-5882.
another hot topic, at least in my realm, because I have a kid this age. There's a lot of parents now that are holding back their kids. Have you heard of this? They're holding back in 8th grade to kind of yeah. I don't, to me it seems counterproductive, but I want to hear like your thought as a head coach. But holding back kids in that 8th grade year so they get another year to get ready to go to high school.
So they're older?
Just older, yes. And so are you? I'm sure you're starting to see some of that. And what are you kind of thinking?
That's been
about
going
that?
on for a while. That's
Yeah.
been going on for a while. To me, I mean, ultimately, it's a family decision. I'm gonna be honest with you. I did that with my son.
Okay.
Mhm.
My son was held back for a year, and I think it helped him tremendously. You're when you're older, and when it makes it can make a difference. There's some kids that don't need that.
Yeah, they're not.
I think
Yeah.
it's something where you got to examine and look at your situation, and if it works for you, and the big thing is your kids got to be on board with it. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'cause
because
that's-
I wasn't
Socially,
gonna do
there's
it.
socially there's some things that go along with that too, right? I mean,
I wasn't gonna do it if he wasn't okay with it.
yeah.
Because then if things don't go right, then I'm
Yeah,
gonna get
yeah,
blamed.
yeah.
Hey, you said you were okay with it. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
exactly.
ultimately it's a family decision. But it's been going on for a while. It's been going on in Texas, other states
Yeah.
forever.
Okay.
It's just you're starting to see a little bit more of it around here, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it as long as you make sure your kid isn't past the age they have to be their senior year. You better do the math correctly.
Right.
But
Yeah,
you
because
know,
there is an age limit, right? So
yeah,
you
there
can't
is.
time that out wrong, right? If you're not
Yeah,
looking
you got to
at the
make sure you
calendar,
look
right?
at the CIF rule. And
They're
Yeah,
starting
hey,
kindergarten when they're
yeah,
10.
I mean,
yeah, I haven't been an AD for a while, and I mean, I'd have to go back and look at it, but there's you just got to make sure they're not a certain
Yeah.
age by a certain time
yeah,
or senior.
you don't want to get midway through the season and be
Yeah,
ineligible
yes,
because you're
Yeah.
too old, right?
yes.
Oh, season's over.
Sorry,
Sorry.
this is your last game.
So definitely check that out, parents, if you're
Yeah.
thinking about doing that. Yes, that's definitely something you got to take a look at. But yeah, this is a lot of good knowledge here on
Yeah.
Desert Valley Blitz today, man.
All you young coaches.
Yeah, everybody needs to take the words of advice. Coach, we're kind of running up against time here though, but we always like to ask our coaches, what advice would you give to maybe an up and comer, an assistant, maybe a kid getting out of school that wants to get into this profession of football coaching? What would your advice be to that person?
So number one, if this is something you really want to do, you got to become a teacher.
Yeah.
That's if you're looking to be serious about it, you got to get into education. Not that you can't do it, but it's
Yeah.
just that's
It's easier.
I was a U.S. history teacher for 14 years, a history teacher for 14 years, and I loved history, but I really wanted to coach.
Mhm.
That was they just went together. So make sure you get the education piece taken care of. When you work under different coaches, whoever it is, just absorb, be a sponge.
Yeah.
Just to sit back and when I was a young coach, I wouldn't say a word. 4 or 5 years, I just sat in that meeting room and I just absorbed. I only spoke when I was spoken to.
Yeah.
I'm not saying be complete. Like I just, be a sponge. Just absorb, ask questions, and look to be not just, and it's not, and understand that it's not just about wins. Yes, they are important, but you're out there to make these young boys into men, into good
Mhm.
men,
Yeah.
Mhm.
good individuals. Ultimately, that's got to come from your heart, where you're there to make them better men, better brothers, better sons, better husbands one day, you know, and if you come from there, good things are going to
Yeah.
happen. You know, just make sure your heart's in the right place and you're willing to learn, and you'll be okay, and take care of the classroom type stuff. Become a teacher, get an education, and then the sky's the limit. It's getting real tough to get teachers to coach nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
so you know, there's a real need, and there's a real need for good coaches, good men to mentor these young kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of good words of advice. Education, man, just like anything,
Start
right?
now.
You
Don't
gotta
wait. Don't
don't
wait.
wait.
Just
Get
get it
that.
done.
That's it, man. Get in that classroom. Get that credential going, because it's a big part of it if you want to be a lifelonger,
Yeah.
like Coach Ruiz here. Well, thank Coach Ruiz. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks, Coach.
We've been waiting to have you in here. I know you got a big packed schedule, but we're gonna have to have you back when
Yeah.
the season starts to come around, so we
Absolutely.
can preview 2026, what the Blackhawks are looking like. I'm sure you're gonna have another successful season. Tradition says you guys are gonna be right there, and we're looking forward to kind of talking to you about that.
We got a ways to go, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Coach.
much
Thanks,
for having
Coach.
me.
Long way to
Yeah.
go.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, if you guys know the routine, man, if you found some value in today's conversation, like, subscribe, and follow, and we'll see you next time on Desert Valley Blitz.
See ya.